The stars stretched endlessly in all directions as the human exploration fleet moved through the dark. Commander Hyanwu stood on the bridge of the Perseverance, watching the navigation displays with calm eyes. His crew had been traveling for 3 months now, mapping this region of space that humanity had never visited before. Behind his diplomatic vessel, 3 military escort ships kept pace. The Indomitable, the Resilient, and the Steadfast were ready for anything. "Commander, we have multiple contacts," the sensor officer called out. 12 ships, unknown configuration. They just appeared on our scopes. Huanwu leaned forward. This was what they had been hoping for and dreading in equal measure. First contact with alien life. All ships, defensive formation. Do not power weapons yet. Communications, open all frequencies. Let's say hello. Board the escort carrier Indomitable, Captain Jiwen received the formation orders and moved her ship into position. Her crew had drilled for this moment hundreds of times. She watched the unknown vessels on her displays, trying to assess their intentions. The alien ships were large, elegant things with smooth curves and glowing sections. They looked advanced. They looked dangerous. "Ma'am, they're scanning us," her sensor officer reported. "Multiple active scans. Very powerful." "Let them look," G1 said calmly. "We have nothing to hide." On the Dalvine flagship, Admiral Torvin studied the strange new vessels with growing confusion. His species had explored the galaxy for thousands of years. The Dalvine Confederation represented 12 different alien races, all united under one banner. They knew every major civilization, every technology, every trick that starfaring species used. But these ships were different. "Scan report," Torvin demanded. His sensor operator looked up with confusion on his scaled face. "Sir, the sensors are malfunctioning. We're getting error codes across all systems." "What kind of errors?" "Mass distribution errors, energy signature impossibilities, structural integrity values that exceed our theoretical maximums." "Sir, according to our sensors, these ships cannot exist. The readings violate known physics." Torvin's claws tapped against his command chair. In his experience, only 2 things cause sensor errors like this. Either the equipment was broken, or someone was using advanced jamming technology to hide their true capabilities. Since his equipment had worked perfectly 5 minutes ago, he knew which option was more likely. "They're jamming us," Torvin announced. "Hostile intent confirmed." Battle stations. Hyanwu watched the alien vessels change formation. Their movements were coordinated, practiced. Weapon ports opened along their hulls, and energy built up in what were clearly targeting systems. His translator software was still trying to decode their language. But their body language was clear enough. "Sir, they're powering weapons," his tactical officer said. "Keep our weapons cold," Hyanwu ordered. "Send another message. All frequencies. Tell them we come in peace." The translator finally crackled to life. A harsh, angry voice filled the bridge. "Unknown vessels, you are conducting hostile electronic warfare against Dalvine forces. This is an act of war. Power down all systems and prepare to be boarded, or you will be destroyed. You have 2 of your minutes to comply." Hyanwu felt his stomach sink. Electronic warfare? They weren't jamming anything. Send a response. Tell them we are not using any jamming technology. Our sensors are passive only. We mean no harm. But the Dalvine weren't listening. Torvin had made up his mind. In 12,000 years of spaceflight, the Dalvine had never encountered a species that refused their demands. Species that tried to hide their technology were always dangerous. They needed to be taught respect immediately. "If they do not comply in 1 more minute, open fire," Torvin commanded. "Disable their engines, but keep them alive for questioning." Aboard the Perseverance, the tension rose with each passing second. Hyanwu watched the countdown timer and made the hardest decision of his life. He could surrender his ships to an alien force that clearly didn't trust them, putting hundreds of human lives at unknown risk. Or he could fight, starting humanity's first interstellar war before diplomacy even had a chance. "Captain G1," Hyanwu said quietly over the command channel. "Bring your shields to full power. All ships. Defensive pattern Omega. If they fire first, You are authorized to return fire. Protect yourselves, understood, Commander G1 replied. Her voice was steady, but Han Wu could hear the tension in it. She turned to her crew. You heard the commander? Shields to maximum. Charge the railgun capacitors. Weapons free if they shoot first. The bridge of the Indomitable hummed with energy as the fusion reactors increased output. Power flowed through the ship's systems, feeding the magnetic shield generators and weapon systems. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, each person knowing their role. Lieutenant Sung Ho checked his weapons console. The railgun arrays were humanity's pride and joy. Simple physics taken to its logical extreme. Magnetic coils accelerated projectiles to a fraction of light speed. No fancy energy weapons, no exotic particles. Just solid metal moving very, very fast. He had 8 rounds loaded and ready. Weapons hot, Captain, Sung Ho reported. Ready to engage on your mark. The timer reached 0. For a moment, nothing happened. Han Wu allowed himself to hope that maybe the aliens would reconsider. Maybe they would choose to talk instead of fight. Then the Dalvine flagship opened fire. Beams of superheated plasma lanced across the void. Brilliant and deadly. They struck the Perseverance S-shields in a cascade of energy. Alarms blared across the bridge as the shield generators absorbed the impact. The ship shook, but held together. Shields holding at 70%, the engineering officer reported. They hit us with everything they had. All ships returned fire. Han Wu ordered. Tactical. Get us out of their direct line of sight. Captain G1 didn't hesitate. Sung Ho, you have firing solutions. Take them. The Indomitable S railgun spoke with electromagnetic fury. 8 projectiles launched in rapid sequence. Each one a 2-tone slug of tungsten and titanium, accelerated to 40,000 kilometers per second. They crossed the distance to the nearest Dalvine cruiser in less than a second. The Dalvine captain saw the launches on his sensors and laughed. Kinetic weapons. These primitives were using metal bullets. His shields could stop meteor impacts. What could simple projectiles do? The first round hit his shields at relativistic velocity. The energy shield, designed to deflect particle beams and plasma, did nothing against solid matter moving at such speeds. The projectile passed through as if the shield didn't exist and punched into the cruiser's hull. It penetrated 3 decks before the kinetic energy burst in a catastrophic explosion of vaporized metal and atmosphere. The second and third rounds followed microseconds later. The Dalvine cruiser shuddered as massive holes appeared in its structure. The fourth round struck near the engine section, and secondary explosions rippled through the ship. Impossible, Torvin shouted. Our shields should have stopped those. Sir, they're not using energy weapons, his sensor operator reported, voice shaking. They're using kinetic projectiles at 0.1% light speed. Our shields aren't designed to stop solid matter at those velocities. The remaining Dalvine ships opened fire with everything they had. Plasma lances, graviton torpedoes, and particle beams lit up the space between the 2 fleets. The human ships' shields glowed white-hot as they absorbed punishment that should have vaporized them, but the shields held. Human engineers had built them to withstand the fury of nuclear explosions at close range. They had built them to survive, and that made all the difference. The battle raged across the void with a violence that neither side had anticipated. Dalvine plasma lances carved through space, each shot carrying enough energy to boil an ocean. They hammered against the human shields in waves of destruction. The shield generators aboard the human ships screamed with the strain. Dispersing heat and energy as fast as the Dalvine could deliver it, Lieutenant Sung Ho watched his targeting displays as the Indomitable banked hard to port. The railgun capacitors were recharging, drinking power from the fusion reactors as fast as Engineer Haijin could feed them. He had firing solutions on 3 more Dalvine vessels. His fingers moved across the controls with practiced ease. Capacitors at 90%, he called out. Ready to fire in 10 seconds? Captain G1 gripped her command chair as another plasma lance struck their shields. The ship shook, but the lights never flickered. The power grid remained stable. Target their weapon systems. I want them unable to fight, not unable to surrender. Understood, ma'am. Sung-ho adjusted his aim points. The railguns could punch through almost anything, but precision took skill. He waited for the perfect moment as the Dalvin cruiser turned to bring more weapons to bear. There, the weapon ports were exposed, firing. 2 more tungsten slugs launched from the Indomitable. They crossed the distance in an eye blink and struck the Dalvin cruiser exactly where Sung-ho had aimed. The first round destroyed 3 plasma lance emitters in a shower of sparks and vented atmosphere. The second round hit their forward shield generator. The energy barrier flickered and died. Aboard the damaged Dalvin cruiser, alarms wailed as the crew struggled to understand what was happening. Their sensors still showed error codes. The tactical displays made no sense. How could simple kinetic weapons be so devastating? Every calculation they had ever done said that railguns were inefficient, primitive weapons. The energy cost to accelerate matter to such speeds was astronomical. No species wasted power like that. But the humans weren't wasting power. They were using it exactly as they intended. On the Dalvin flagship, Admiral Torvin finally accepted that his assumptions had been wrong. These weren't primitives. They were something else entirely. Something dangerous? All ships. Evasive maneuvers. Do not close to weapons range, Torvin ordered. Long-range bombardment only. But it was too late for 3 of his ships. The human vessels had already closed the distance, and at close range, the human weapons were brutally effective. The escort destroyer Steadfast swept past a Dalvin frigate, and her railguns spoke 6 times in rapid succession. Each shot was perfectly placed, surgically destroying weapon systems and engines. The Dalvin ship went dark, drifting helplessly. Engineer Hyjin worked frantically in the Perseverance's engineering section. Her displays showed reactor temperatures that would make any sane alien engineer scream in terror. The fusion containment fields were holding matter at 50 million degrees, feeding the ship's hungry systems with an endless stream of power. Reactor 3 is at 112% output, her assistant called out nervously. Should we throttle back? Negative, Hyjin said calmly. These reactors are rated for 130% in combat conditions. We built them to run hot. Keep feeding power to the shields. The Dalvin sensors registered the human reactor outputs and flagged them with another error code. According to every model they had, those reactors should be melting down. The magnetic containment should be failing. The ships should be tearing themselves apart from the inside. But the humans had been playing with fusion since the 20th century. They knew how to make it work. They knew how to push it to the edge and hold it there. The Resilient took a direct hit from a graviton torpedo. The weapon used artificial gravity to crush its target, a terrifying piece of technology that the Dalvin were justly proud of. The torpedo struck the human destroyer's shields and detonated. For a moment, the Resilient seemed to collapse inward as gravity pulled at her hull. Then the moment passed. The ship's internal compensators fought back against the gravity wave. Her hull, built from composite materials that shouldn't exist according to Dalvin science, flexed and held. Stress cracks appeared along 2 sections, but the redundant hull plating kept her intact. Warning lights flashed on the bridge, but the ship remained operational. Damage report, the captain demanded. Hull breach on deck 4, sealed. Shield generator 2 is offline. Generator 1 and 3 are compensating. We're at 60% shield capacity, the damage control officer reported. Sir, we can keep fighting. Because that's what human ships did. They kept fighting. Every critical system had a backup. Every backup had a backup. The Resilient had 6 separate power distribution networks. Lose one, and 5 others would take up the load. Her crew could literally abandon half the ship and still fly her home. Captain, Juan saw the damage to the Resilient on her tactical display. Sung-ho, target the ship that fired that torpedo. Make them regret it. With pleasure, ma'am. The Indomitable came about, her bow aimed directly at the Dalvin heavy cruiser. Sung-ho didn't use the railguns this time. Instead, he launched a spread of missiles. 12 of them, simple chemical rockets with nuclear warheads. Ancient technology by galactic standards. The Dalvin had used fusion weapons 10,000 years ago and moved on to cleaner, more efficient energy weapons. The Dalvine point defense systems tracked the incoming missiles and calculated trajectories. The targeting computers assigned threat values to each one. Nuclear weapons. Primitive fusion bombs. The tactical AI almost dismissed them as non-threats. But protocol demanded a response. Energy beams lanced out, destroying 8 of the 12 missiles before they could close. 4 missiles got through. They detonated in a synchronized pattern around the Dalvine cruiser. And the space around the ship turned into a hell of radiation and electromagnetic fury. The shields absorbed most of it, but the electromagnetic pulse washed over the ship's systems. Circuits fried. Computers crashed. Backup systems failed as the surge overwhelmed them. The Dalvine had built their ships to be elegant and efficient. Every system was perfectly calibrated, every circuit optimized for maximum performance. They had no tolerance for chaos, no margin for error. And nuclear weapons were chaos incarnate. The heavy cruiser went dark, drifting blind and helpless. Engineer Haijin watched her sensors and smiled grimly. The EMP had done its job. Human ships were hardened against electromagnetics pulses because humans had been dealing with nuclear weapons since the 1940s. Every circuit board had shielding. Every computer had surge protection. Every system was built to survive the worst. Humanity could throw at it because humanity knew that war was never clean or efficient. War was chaos, and you built your weapons to thrive in chaos. All ships, press the attack. Commander Han-Wu ordered. But watch your fire. They're disabled now. I want prisoners, not corpses. The battle was ending. The Dalvine had lost 4 ships outright, with 3 more disabled and drifting. The remaining 5 were pulling back, trying to create distance. Admiral Torvin's flagship had taken minor damage, but more importantly, Torvin had taken a major blow to his pride and his understanding of the universe. "Sir, should we pursue?" his second officer asked. Torvin stared at the tactical display. The human ships were barely scratched. His own fleet was broken, and his sensors still showed nothing but errors and impossible readings. He had attacked a species he didn't understand, with weapons they had apparently prepared for. He had made assumptions based on thousands of years of experience, and every assumption had been wrong. "No," Torvin said quietly. "Signal retreat. We need to report this to the Council. They need to know about these humans." The Dalvine ships activated their faster-than-light drives and vanished into the black. The human fleet held position, weapons still hot, shields still raised. They watched the aliens run and felt no satisfaction. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. Commander Han-Wu looked at the damage reports. The Resilient needed repairs. The Perseverance had taken shield damage, but they had one. Against a superior force of aliens with technology humanity barely understood, they had one. "Get me a channel to Earth," Han-Wu said. "Command needs to know that we're not alone in the universe anymore. And apparently, we just made enemies." The Galactic Council Chamber was a massive structure that orbited a neutron star, a demonstration of the combined engineering might of dozens of species. Representatives from across known space gathered here to discuss matters of war, peace, and trade. Today, they gathered to discuss humanity. Chief Investigator Nalith stood before the council, her 4 arms holding data tablets and display devices. She was a Varane, a species known for their analytical minds and patience. She had spent 3 weeks reviewing every piece of data that Dalvine had collected from their encounter with the human fleet. What she had found disturbed her greatly. "Honored council members," Naloth began, her voice translator rendering her words into a dozen languages simultaneously. "I have completed my analysis of the human vessels. The Dalvine sensors did not malfunction. The error codes were accurate assessments. The human ships are, by our standards, impossible." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A Krell counselor, his carapace gleaming under the lights, spoke up. "Impossible?" "Explain." Naloth activated a holographic display. A human warship appeared, slowly rotating. This is the vessel designated Indomitable. It masses approximately 400,000 tons. Its power plant operates at temperatures and pressures that exceed our safety limits by a factor of 3. According to our models, the containment system should fail within minutes. Yet they don't, said a Torlian counselor, her scales shifting colors to indicate curiosity. Why? Because humans don't optimize for safety margins the way we do, Nalith explained. She highlighted the reactor section. This fusion reactor uses magnetic containment fields that would be considered barely adequate by our standards. But the humans compensate with material science we cannot replicate. They use carbon structures at the molecular level, woven together in patterns that give them strength we thought impossible with such simple elements. Ambassador Minji sat quietly in the human delegation area, listening. She had arrived at the council station 2 days ago, bringing with her technical specifications and data that humanity hoped would prevent another incident. Now she watched as the aliens tried to understand the gulf between their technology and Earth's. The weapons systems are equally concerning, Naloth continued. They use kinetic projectiles accelerated through electromagnetic rails. This is not new technology. Every species in this chamber used similar weapons thousands of years ago, before moving on to more efficient energy-based systems. Then why are they so effective? The Krell counselor demanded. Naloth brought up firing calculations. Because the humans pour enormous amounts of energy into each shot. The energy cost to accelerate a projectile to 0.2% light speed is tremendous. We abandoned such weapons because they were inefficient. But humans don't care about efficiency. They care about results. She showed footage from the battle. A railgun slug impacting a Dalvine shield. The shield failing. The projectile punching through armor plating designed to stop energy weapons. Our shields are designed to deflect charged particles and plasma. We optimized them for the threats we face. The humans used a weapon type we didn't think anyone would bother with anymore, and it bypassed our defenses entirely. They exploited a weakness in galactic defense doctrine, a Varan counselor observed. That's clever, but not impossible. Adjust our shields to account for kinetic threats.
8.
It's not that simple, Naloth said. She brought up more data. To stop kinetic projectiles at those velocities, you need either much more powerful shields or physical armor. Both require tremendous amounts of mass. The humans use both. Their ships are encased in armor plating that makes up nearly 30% of their total mass. We abandoned armor centuries ago as inefficient. The humans embrace it. Minji decided it was time to speak. She rose and bowed politely to the council. Honored members, if I may add context to Investigator Naloth's excellent analysis. The council speaker gestured permission. Please, Ambassador. We are eager to understand your people. Minji stepped forward, activating her own display. Images of Earth appeared, rotating slowly. This is our homeworld. Surface gravity, 1 standard unit, which I understand is higher than 80% of council species. Atmospheric composition, 21% oxygen, which is also unusually high. Tectonic activity, extreme. Weather patterns, violent and unpredictable. She showed footage of hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. The council members watched with what Minji recognized as discomfort. Earth was not a gentle world. We call it a death world, Minji continued. Life on Earth is a constant struggle against the environment. Our technology reflects this reality. We don't build things to work perfectly under ideal conditions. We build them to survive everything. Dr. Taeyong, Earth's chief military engineer, joined Minji. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, someone who had spent 40 years designing warships. Every human vessel has redundant systems at a level you would find absurd. If you lose 30% of a human warship, it keeps fighting. If you lose 60%, it can still limp home. We learned to build this way because on Earth, nothing ever goes according to plan. He brought up schematics of the Indomitable. This ship has 6 separate power distribution networks, 3 independent life support systems. The hull is made of composite materials layered in multiple sheets. Breach 1 layer, and 2 more are underneath. Damage control teams can seal breaches while under fire. We designed every centimeter of this ship to take punishment and survive. But why? A Dalvine counselor asked. It was Admiral Torvin himself, here to face the consequences of his defeat. Why build so heavily when you could build lighter, faster, more efficient ships? Taeyang looked at him with something like pity. Because efficiency means nothing if your ship is destroyed by the first hit. We learned this lesson in Earth's oceans, in our atmosphere, in space. Nature doesn't care about efficiency. It cares about survival. So we built our ships the way Earth taught us to build. Naloth nodded slowly. This explains much. But I must address another concern. She brought up data on human expansion. In the 3 weeks since first contact, our intelligence suggests humanity has increased military ship production by 40%. The Dalvine encountered 4 ships. We now estimate Earth has at least 30 combat vessels, with more under construction. The council chamber erupted in concerned chatter. The Krell counselor called for order. How is this possible? Ship construction takes years. For you, perhaps, Minji said calmly. Humans build quickly. We have extensive industrial capacity spread across our home system. Earth, Mars, the asteroid belt, the moons of Jupiter. When we commit to building something, we build it fast. And what precisely are you building? Torvin asked, his voice edged with concern. Minji met his gaze. Defense forces. You attacked us without provocation, Admiral. We're preparing in case someone tries again. Surely the Council understands the need for self-defense. The Torlian counselor shifted colors to indicate diplomatic concern. Ambassador Minji, please understand our position. Your species appears suddenly, wielding technology that defeats our most advanced weapons, and immediately begins military expansion. Some council members view this as threatening, and some humans view the galaxy as threatening, Minji replied. You opened fire on us before establishing communication. You could have destroyed our ships. Instead, we defended ourselves and showed restraint. We disabled your vessels rather than destroying them. We let you retreat. Does this sound like an aggressive species to you? The council was silent for a moment. Then the council speaker, an ancient being whose species had founded the council millennia ago, spoke. The ambassador makes a fair point. The humans defended themselves but did not pursue or destroy. This shows judgment, shows they wanted prisoners for intelligence gathering, Torvin muttered. It shows we wanted to avoid unnecessary death, Minji corrected firmly. We're not monsters, Admiral. We're explorers who happen to be very good at surviving hostile environments. Earth made us tough. It didn't make us cruel. Dr. Teg added quietly, we understand you're concerned. A new species with powerful weapons is always concerning. But consider this. If we had wanted to be conquerors, we could have fired first. We didn't. We tried to talk. You chose violence. We chose restraint. Judge us by our actions, not your fears. The council chamber fell quiet. Naloth looked at her data one more time and came to a conclusion. Honored Council, I believe the humans are speaking truthfully. Their technology is not exotic or ancient. It's simply a different philosophy of engineering. They build for worst-case scenarios. We build for optimal efficiency. Neither approach is wrong. They are simply different. Different can still be dangerous, the Krell counselor said. Yes, Naloth agreed. But danger and hostility are not the same thing. I recommend opening formal diplomatic relations with humanity. Learn from them. Perhaps they can learn from us as well. The vote was called. After much debate, the Council agreed to recognize humanity as a sovereign species and open diplomatic channels. But not all agreed. Some saw humanity as a threat. Some began planning for a future where the humans needed to be controlled or eliminated. News of humanity spread through the galaxy like a shockwave. Some species reacted with curiosity, others with fear, and some with calculation. In the war rooms and council chambers of 100 worlds, leaders looked at the data from the Dalvine encounter and made decisions about how to respond to these dangerous newcomers. The Varine Republic was among the first to reach out. Their ambassador, a tall being with crystalline skin that refracted light into rainbow patterns, met with Ambassador Youngseek in neutral space. They sat across from each other in a conference room aboard a trading station, the vastness of space visible through the windows. "Your species interests us," the Vereen ambassador said. "Not because you are strong, though you are, but because you think differently. The galaxy has become stagnant. The same species, the same technologies, the same ideas for thousands of years. You are new. You are different. Perhaps together, we can create something better." Young Sikh considered carefully. He was younger than Minji, chosen for this role because of his skill at reading alien body language and his knack for finding common ground. The Vereen have a reputation as innovators. We would welcome closer relations. What did you have in mind? A technology exchange. A defensive pact. Trade agreements. We are not a military power like the Kordax Empire, but we have resources and knowledge. You have perspectives we lack. Together, we could benefit greatly. They talked for hours, and by the end, a framework for cooperation was emerging. Not an alliance yet, but the beginning of one. Young Sikh sent word back to Earth. The diplomats began drafting treaties. But not everyone in the galaxy wanted friendship. It's with humanity. In the throne world of the Korthax Empire, High Commander Vekros studied battle reports with growing anger. The Korthax had ruled the military hierarchy of the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had the largest fleet, the most advanced weapons, and the best-trained soldiers. They had enforced galactic peace through strength, and everyone respected them. Now these humans had embarrassed the Dalvine Confederation, a respectable military force. They had done it with primitive weapons and brute force tactics. And the Galaxy Council had welcomed them instead of demanding they disarm. "Unacceptable," Vekros said to his war council. "The humans are a disruption to galactic order. They must be brought to heel before they grow stronger." "High Commander, the Council has recognized them as sovereign," one of his advisors cautioned. "An unprovoked attack would be—" "The Dalvine attack was unprovoked," Vekros interrupted. "Yet the humans survive and prosper. No, we will not attack unprovoked. We will issue demands. We will require them to submit their military to Council oversight. When they refuse, as they surely will, we will have justification." Another advisor, braver than the first, spoke up. "Sir, the humans defeated the Dalvine. We should be cautious." Vekros laughed, a harsh sound. "The Dalvines sent 12 ships and were careless. We will send 200. We will crush them in their home system and make an example. The galaxy will remember that the Korthax Empire maintains order." The War Council began planning the largest military operation in recent galactic history. Ships from across the Empire were recalled. Supply chains were activated. Soldiers drilled for assault operations. The Korthax war machine, dormant for decades, began to wake on Earth. In the war room beneath Houston Command, the human leadership saw the storm gathering. Captain Dehayan stood before a holographic display showing Korthax fleet movements. He was a career military officer who had spent 20 years preparing for conflicts that never came. Now, the conflict was coming to him. "They're not even trying to hide it," Admiral Suman observed. She commanded Earth's defense forces, a role she had held for 5 years. 200 ships. That's 10 times what hit the Dalvine. "The math doesn't favor us," Dehayan admitted. "We have 18 ships combat-ready, with another 12 in various stages of construction. Even if we rush them to completion, we'll be outnumbered 6-1. "Then we don't fight fair," Engineer Hyjin said from her position at the technical station. She had been recalled from the Perseverance to help with Earth's defense preparations. "We use every advantage we have. Every dirty trick we know. Make them fight our kind of battle, not theirs." Tactical Officer Kyung Soo brought up simulation data. He was brilliant at strategy, able to see patterns others missed. "I've been running scenarios. If we engage them in open space, ship to ship, we lose. But if we use the solar system itself as a battlefield," he showed them a plan. It was audacious, risky, and required perfect timing. The success probability was low, but it was better than fighting a conventional battle they couldn't win. "Run it again," Admiral Suman ordered. "Find the weak points. We need this plan to be perfect." While the military planned, Earth's industrial capacity roared to life. Every shipyard worked around the clock. Mars colonies contributed their manufacturing facilities. The asteroid belt mining operations shifted to military production. Humanity had experience with total war from its own history, and that knowledge hadn't been forgotten. In the orbital shipyards above Earth, workers assembled ships at a pace that would shock the Korthax if they knew. Where galactic species took years to build a warship, humans completed one in weeks. The quality control was looser. The designs were standardized, but the ships worked. They would fly, fight, survive long enough to matter. Engineer Haijin consulted with Dr. Taeyang on modifications to the reactor systems. "We need more power output," she said. "The plan Kyung-Suhis requires overloading the reactors beyond normal combat specifications." Taeyang reviewed the numbers. "These settings are dangerous. If the magnetic containment fails, then the ship explodes," Haijin finished. "But if we don't do this, we lose anyway. The crews will volunteer." "You know they will." Taeyang sighed. She was right. Humans had always been willing to take risks when the alternative was defeat. "I'll approve the modifications. But we add more emergency shutdown systems. If something goes wrong, I want the crews to have a chance to evacuate." Lieutenant Seung Ho trained new gunners in the art of firing railguns in combat. He had become something of a legend after the Dalveen encounter, and now every weapons officer wanted to learn from him. He drilled them relentlessly on firing solutions, target prioritization, and ammunition management. "Speed is not enough," he told them. "You must be precise. Every shot costs energy and mass we can't spare. Make every round count. Aim for their weapons, their engines, their command sections. Disable them if you can. Destroy them if you must." Meanwhile, Ambassador Minji worked frantically to build diplomatic support. She met with every species that would talk to her, trying to build a coalition that might deter the Korthax attack. Some species were sympathetic, but unwilling to risk Korthax anger. Others were openly hostile, seeing humanity as upstarts who needed to be taught humility. But a few listened. The Vreen Republic agreed to provide intelligence on Korthax fleet movements. A minor species called the Pelthic offered their shipyards for human repairs if needed. It wasn't an alliance, but it was something. "Will it be enough?" Young Sik asked her during a private meeting. "No," Minji admitted. "The Korthax are coming and they're bringing overwhelming force. We can't stop them through diplomacy. The best I can do is make sure some species remember us favorably after we're gone." "We're not going to lose," Young Sik said firmly. "How can you be sure?" "Because we're human. We survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. We crawled out of the gravity well of a death world and built cities in space. The Korthax think they're going to crush us? Let them try." Back on Earth, Commander Hyenwoo was given command of the defensive fleet. He had started this whole situation by making first contact. Now he would lead humanity's response to the consequences. He stood in the briefing room, looking at the faces of his captains. These were the people who would fight the impossible battle. "The Korthax will arrive in Sol System in 3 weeks, Hyenwoo said. "They expect to find us cowering or scattered. Instead, they'll find us ready. Captain G1, the Indomitable, will lead the first response group. Captain Daehyan, you'll command the main fleet from the Unconquerable. Admiral Suman will coordinate from Earth. And if the plan doesn't work," someone asked. Hyenwoo smiled grimly. "Then we improvise. Isn't that what humans do best?" The fleet prepared. The shipyards worked. The soldiers drilled. Earth and all her children waited for the storm to break. They were afraid, but they were ready. The Korthax were bringing war. Humanity would show them why that was a mistake. The Korthax armada emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol System like a swarm of metal locusts. 200 warships, ranging from nimble destroyers to massive dreadnoughts, spread across space in a formation that had conquered 40 star systems. High Commander Vekris stood on the bridge of his flagship Dominion. Watching the displays with satisfaction, "Scan for human vessels," he ordered. The sensor operator worked his controls, and his expression shifted from confidence to confusion. Sir, I'm detecting 43 human warships. That's more than double what intelligence predicted. Vecrus frowned. The humans had been busy, but it didn't matter. 200 against 43 was still an overwhelming advantage. Display their positions. Tactical display. Showed the human fleet arranged in a defensive sphere around Earth and Mars. It was a textbook. Formation for defending a home system. Predictable. Vecrus had fought against such formations 100 times. Send them our terms, Vecrus commanded. Unconditional surrender, disarmament, submission to council authority. They have 1 hour to comply, the message was transmitted. On Earth, in the command center, Admiral Sumin read the demands and laughed bitterly. They want us to surrender before they've even fired a shot. The arrogance is remarkable. Should we respond? Her communications officer asked. Tell them to go to hell, Sumin said, but use proper diplomatic language. The human response was short and clear. Humanity would defend itself. The Korthax could leave peacefully or face the consequences. Vecros read the response and shook his head. They choose death over wisdom. Very well. All ships attack formation. Destroy the outer defensive ring first, then proceed to the primary targets. The Korthax fleet advanced, splitting into 3 groups to hit the human defensive sphere from multiple angles. It was a standard, overwhelming assault tactic designed to spread the defenders too thin to effectively counter. As they closed to engagement range, their sensors finally got clear readings on the human ships. Sir, I'm reading those error codes again, the sensor operator reported. The human ships show impossible reactor outputs, structural integrity beyond theoretical limits, and weapon systems that shouldn't work. The sensors said the same thing when the Dalveen fought them, Vecrus replied. It didn't help the Dalveen, and it won't help us. Ignore the error codes. Target their largest ships first. But Captain Dahayan was not following the defensive plan the Korthax expected. From the bridge of the Unconquerable, he watched the enemy fleet advance and smiled coldly. All ships, execute Plan Omega. Full power to engines and forward shields. We're going in. The human fleet didn't hold position to defend. Instead, 43 ships accelerated directly toward the advancing Korthax armada. It was suicide. It was insane. It was exactly what the Korthax fleet wasn't expecting.
Ow.
Vecrus said in disbelief. With a fraction of our numbers? Sir, they're routing all power to engines and shields, his tactical officer reported. Their weapons are offline. I don't understand their strategy. You would understand soon enough. Captain G1 stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching her speed climb. The ship shook with the power of her fusion reactors running at maximum output. Every watt of power that wasn't keeping the crew alive or the ship flying was feeding the forward shields. Engineering status? She called out. Engineer Higgins' voice came over the comm. Reactors at 120%. Shields are holding. But Commander, we can't maintain this for more than 10 minutes before we risk containment failure. We only need 5 minutes, G1 replied. Prepare the payload. Behind the charging human Vanguard, every other human ship opened their missile bays. Thousands of missiles launched, simple chemical rockets with nuclear warheads. The Korthax point defense systems tracked them, calculating threat priorities. Nuclear weapons were ancient technology. The tactical computers assigned them low threat values and focused on the charging warships instead. This was humanity's first mistake in Korthax's eyes, and it would be their last. The charging ships were sacrificing themselves to deliver a primitive weapons payload. Honorable, but pointless. Lieutenant Sunho counted down on the Indomitable. Missiles at optimal dispersal range in 30 seconds. All ships prepare for EMP burst. The missiles didn't try to hit the Korthax ships. Instead, they spread out in a carefully calculated pattern around the enemy fleet. Then, on a synchronized signal, they all detonated at once. 4,000 nuclear warheads erupted in a sphere of destruction. The explosions weren't close enough to damage the Korthax ships directly, but they didn't need to be. The electromagnetic pulse from 4,000 nuclear detonations cascaded through space. washing over the Korthak's fleet like an invisible tsunami. The Korthaks had been fighting with energy, weapons, and sophisticated electronics for thousands of years. Their ships were marvels of efficiency and precision. Every system was perfectly calibrated, every circuit optimized for maximum performance. They had no tolerance for chaos. The EMP hit them like a hammer. Shield generators sparked and failed. Targeting computers crashed. Communication systems went dark. Power distribution networks overloaded as surge protectors burned out. The Korthak's fleet, so perfectly organized moments before, dissolved into chaos. Aboard the Dominion, Vecrus watched his displays die one by one. Emergency lighting kicked in as backup systems struggled to restart. What happened? Report. Sir, massive electromagnetic pulse. All primary systems are offline? We're switching to backups, but they're failing too. His officers scrambled to understand the scope of the disaster. The elegant, efficient Korthak's technology was tearing itself apart, but the human ships kept coming. Their shields glowed white-hot as they pushed through the residual radiation. Their systems hardened against EMP since humanity first split the atom, operated normally in conditions that had crippled the Korthak's fleet. All ships, weapons free, Captain Dehayan ordered. Target their command vessels. Make every shot count. The human fleet, still at full burn, opened fire with their railguns. The Korthak ships, blind and helpless, couldn't maneuver or defend themselves. Tungsten slugs punched through armor at relativistic speeds. Explosions blossomed across the Korthak's formation as ships died or were crippled. Tactical. Officer Kyunsu coordinated the firing solutions from Houston Command. He had planned this battle in simulations for 3 weeks, calculating angles and timing down to the second. Now, his plan was working. Strike Group Alpha. Target the dreadnoughts. Beta Group. Hit their carriers. Keep moving, don't let them recover. The battle became a slaughter. The Korthaks had brought overwhelming force to crush humanity. But overwhelming force meant nothing when your ships couldn't fight back. The humans tore through the disabled fleet like wolves among sheep. Hi, Commander. Vecrus finally got his main computer back online and saw the scope of the disaster. 47 of his ships were destroyed or catastrophically damaged. Another 80 were partially disabled. The humans had lost only 9 vessels, and most of those crews had evacuated successfully. How? Vecrus whispered. How did they know? Commander Hyanwu could have told him. Humanity had been fighting with nuclear weapons for centuries. They knew the effects better than any species in the galaxy. They had built their ships to survive nuclear war, to fight through the chaos and keep operating. The Korthaks had built ships for elegant, efficient combat. When faced with brutal, chaotic warfare, the elegant ships failed. The humans are broadcasting on all channels, Vecros's communications officer reported. Put it through. Ambassador Minji's voice filled the Korthak's bridge. High Commander Vecrus, your fleet is defeated. Surrender now, and we will spare your surviving ships. Continue fighting, and we will destroy you all. You have 5 minutes to decide. Vecrus looked at his tactical display. He had started this battle with 200 ships in absolute confidence. Now he had maybe 70 ships still combat-capable, facing 40 human vessels that had barely been scratched. His crew looked to him for orders. Pride said to fight to the last ship. Wisdom said to preserve what remained of his fleet. Signal all ships, Vecrus said quietly. Cease fire. Prepare to receive terms. The battle was over. The humans had won. On Earth, in the Houston Command Center, Admiral Sumin watched the Korthak's fleet stand down. Around her, the staff erupted in cheers. They had done the impossible. They had defeated the greatest military power in the galaxy. Dr. Taeyang and Engineer Hejin stood together, looking at the engineering reports. The human ships had taken damage, but they were still flying. Still fighting? Doing exactly what they had been designed to do? Should we tell the council? Hejin asked quietly. Tell them what? Taeyang replied, that these ships are 30 years old. That we've been using them because they're reliable and tested. That our cutting-edge technology is still in development. Taeyang smiled. Let's keep that between us. Let them think they've seen the best we can do. Tactical Officer Kung Su overheard and grinned. When they actually see our best, they're going to panic. On the Unconquerable, Captain Daehyun stood among his surviving crew. They had paid a heavy price. 9 ships lost, including the Unconquerable herself.